Do you remember, and you say, I feel like when you get material, like it's a little gift from God, and then you got to write it down. And when I was younger, I thought, oh, I can remember this, or I would write it down on the back of a checkbook. But when I get those little gifts from God, those little messages, I write them down now because of you. But I think every day, what in the world, why I named it that, is that God just blesses me every day with something more and new. And I can also look back and think, because there were bad times, and I think when you were with me, I think Chuck, I wonder if that was right after the economic downturn, and Chuck's dad had died a tragic death. Do you remember that? Was
Yes, I
that
do.
right after?
I remember that.
And I could not get arrested. When I mean that, I mean nobody wanted to book me for anything. The economy was bad. I was doing little corporate gigs. Nobody would hire me because they'd pay more for the shrimp than they would a comedian. And we needed the money, and um, he had to take a cut in pay, and we didn't know if we could keep our house. And I mean, it was just but I look back on it, and I can look at God's hand through all of it. And when this didn't work with me and you, when what we were trying to do, I look back on that, Matt, and I think, you know what, my children were in middle school and high school, and that, if I'd had to leave them to go to LA and not be with them,
Right.
because I remember you telling me, Leanne, Chuck cannot quit his job. You don't know if this is gonna make it. You've got to move out there, and then they would come later if it was a hit. When I look back on that, that was God's protection over me. I truly believe that, because that was not the right timing for my children. I got to raise my own children. And when I did this movie with Reese Witherspoon, every day she stood by me and said, Leanne, you got to raise your own children.
Mm-hmm.
You got to raise she kept saying that to me. And as heartbroken as I was that development deals didn't make it or whatever didn't happen back in those days, that's God's plan. And this was so much better than what I ever dreamed of. And every day that things happen, I think, oh my gosh, that's why this happened the way it did.
Right.
And it was right. And I don't want people to think this has all been a smooth ride. It has been a bumpy, show business. You get a lot of no's. Everybody, Comedy Central never would have me on. I never got invited to big festivals. I was never a cool kid at the cafeteria room is what I call it. But it's okay. For this to happen to me at this time in my life where my children don't need me like they did, and I have the freedom to go and do all this, and I can bless my family financially. And maybe Chuck Morgan won't work like a mule and think they can enjoy something.
Yep.
You know him. He's like, everybody's driving an old car until it falls apart in the highway. He's starting to realize, that he can exchange out that golf bag. He can have a nice pair of tennis shoes to play tennis in. He's very frugal.